Well, why don't we get started? It's 1 minute past 12 noon. I'm just going to introduce myself and thank everybody for joining us on the call today. This is our first webinar of a series of 4. It's our Employees Choice Award webinar series. My name is Susan Blaine. I'm Vice President of Ottawa Business Events, your host today. And Ottawa Business Events, for those that don't know, is a partnership between the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce and the Ottawa Business Journal. And OBE, as we like to call ourselves, Ottawa Business Events produces close to 45 business events every year, including the Employees' Choice Awards. And they're held at the end of January, and we honor and recognize Ottawa's top employees' Choice Award winners. And we've been doing that for about 10 years now. The Employees Choice Award program is based on real survey results. So companies engage their employees in an internal anonymous survey, and it takes only 10 minutes, only 2 minutes to sign up and 10 minutes to complete. So it's very quick. In January, we host a private morning event for all the companies who participated, and we hand out the surveys and we discuss the results. And more specifically, we discuss how to interpret these results and put them to good use in your organization. And Alan joins us as well as some other partners in more thought leadership sharing as well. It's a great event in January. And then the top 10 companies will be published in the Ottawa Business Journal and invited to a celebratory cocktail event where trophies are presented. And we do that at the end of January. And companies that are honored in our ECA program show some common trends. They clearly communicate realistic and achievable goals. They celebrate achievements, no matter how big or small. And their employees are happy and engaged employees. And that makes for a very strong organization. And this ECA webinar series that we're hosting today and throughout the month brings some of the region's most effective thought leaders, and they'll share their insights and provide some tools that will help empower you and your team. And our guest speaker today has shaped his almost 20 years of career management experience into a company. And this company helps people all over North America to navigate a wide variety of career-related issues. He's Canada's career coach. He's a Workopolis career expert, Chapters in Indigo trusted advisor, and one of Canada's leading authorities on career management issues. And we're thrilled to have Alan Kearns here today as a partner also in the Employees' Choice Awards. Please welcome the head coach and founder of Career Joy, Alan Kearns. Welcome, Alan. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be a part of this. It's interesting, you know, my background, I spent a number of years in the recruitment industry. So I've been one of those people that you may be worried about in the past. I was talking to maybe some of your leaders or managers, trying to get them encouraged to think about what's next and where they want to go. And so I come at this subject actually from a very practical, applied perspective, having been in the recruitment industry, but then in the last 12 plus years now, we've worked with a number of organizations, public and private sector, in the whole area of really employee engagement and employee leadership, and really our whole goal is work made better and leadership made better. You know, I'd be thinking about, why does this subject matter? Why does employee engagement matter? Why is being an employer of choice matter? And how does this relate to our conversation today? And so what I want to be sharing with you is just some changes that I'm seeing in the world of work, and I'm seeing it right across the country. I was just actually, I've been in Vancouver. We have offices from Vancouver to Halifax, and I was in Vancouver. I'm in Vancouver dealing with a health organization, dealing with a number of different organizations we have working with there. And again, you see these same patterns where whether it's health or technology or public sector or private sector or not-for-profit, pretty well right across the board, there's changes going on in the world of work, and it's impacting the way we lead and the way that we manage our teams, and also it impacts some stats. You'll see some stats around how it's impacting people, the world of work, and how it's shifting. And to me, the other thing I'll be sharing with you is sort of a way to think about your style and how leadership style and substance both matter in today's world. So understanding your style is one good thing, but also you have to have substance in what you do. And here's a very interesting stat just from Harvard Business Review on mid-level professionals and sort of seeing some of the stats around what's going on in the world of work. And when you think about it, one of the big benefits of being a good employer is you get better results, but you also have less turnover, and you get better people working for you. So there's a whole bunch of benefits for thinking about this topic we're talking about today and why it matters. Now, it's interesting when I look at another survey about what's the biggest challenges that organizations expect to face in the coming years. And really the top three relate to really being in the area of leadership and being an employer of choice. So management, succession, and leadership capacity and recruitment are sort of the top business challenges that organizations are expressing as they think how to move forward. And so to me, this topic of leadership relates to how you manage these things. And I've seen this over and over again. As a recruiter, I've seen this a number of times where in the past, when I was recruiting, where we'd see people join an organization for a promotion, but then struggle, and then they'd have more turnover, and that would be a mess. I was just chatting with one of our clients in Vancouver in the health area, and she was saying they hired a new executive director for the organization. It was a poor hire. They had tons of turnover, and in fact, they have a multi-million-dollar lawsuit from one of the patients, and all of these things that occurred because of poor leadership. So to me, this idea of leadership is really key, and I love this concept, which means the action of leading, the in front of leading place, and taking this concept of being a leader, because ultimately being an employer of choice, it's a very simple idea. It's just not easy. It's being a good leader, and it's being the kind of place that people want to work. And when organizations talk about having a hard time finding people, there are realities of that. I get that. But oftentimes, just an interesting stat, it's harder to work at Google than it is to get into MIT. Let me say that again. It's harder to get to work at Google than it is to MIT. So Google's never running around saying we're really struggling finding people. It's because they've got such a good reputation and good leadership, right? So why does this matter in the changes of the world of work? Well, there's lots of sort of economic changes going on. There's turbulence, globalization. You're seeing this globalization. We're seeing this in the use of temporary contractors and different kinds of workforce. How many of you currently right now are using or have used, put up your hands, those of you that have used or are using contractors in your workplace environment? Yeah, a number of you are, right? So that's changing. New emerging technologies and it's sort of competitive, new competitors. The use of technology and the smartphone, the 24/7 nature of the world of work. The reality of choices that we have. So there's we're deluged with choices, but so are your customers. And this is the concept that we're really talking about is, in a sense, when I call this the mustard principle. When I'm a shopper, I'm bombarded with choices. And if I'm a really good employee, I'm going to have a lot of choices. And it's how do you stand out, on the shelf of this. So what are some of the myths around sort of this idea of 8 types of leaders? So one, that if I know my leadership style, that all of a sudden I'm going to be a great leader. I don't think that's necessarily key. So I think it's sort of understanding the style, but not seeing it as a magic bullet, but understanding that it can help you and refine you and make you more intentional about the way you lead. Another myth around sort of leadership in general that I see is that you should know how to lead. And I call this the scuba diving principle, that, none of us expect that we should know how to scuba dive. My son, a couple years ago, took a scuba diving course in Ottawa, and then this Christmas we went scuba diving in the Great Barrier Reef, and he was quite competent and really enjoyed it. And I think oftentimes we're promoting or putting people into different environments, expecting them that they should just know how to lead, and that's not necessarily true. Sort of another myth around leadership in general is that you should be able to do this by yourself. The whole concept of, it's lonely at the top. And again, what I've noticed is good leaders are good at having a good support systems inside the organization and around their organization in general, and not doing it by themselves. Another myth around this is time. I'm so busy being a leader, I'm so busy doing things, I don't have time to be thinking about these things. And so one of the things that we really encourage you to think about is what I call the 10-minute rule a day. So taking 10 minutes for yourself every day as a leader to either read an article or doing something just that is self-nurturing as a leader. Why does that matter? Because I think it can enable you to to nurturing and developing yourself as a leader. So how do you move forward? How do you, amongst all these changes that are going on in the world of work, all the competition that's going on, the change consistently in every area, how do you deal with this, and what does this look like? And so we're talking about the 8 types of leaders. And so to me, I thought about this concept of it. The time we're in is either you can respond to this by being afraid of it or being smarter about it. And so when I started thinking about this concept, I started thinking about who are we? And what I realized is that interesting Gallup poll, 1.2 million professionals in 60 countries and 99 companies. Really only 17%, so 1/7, really understood their strengths as leaders. They really understood their strengths in general. I mean, not necessarily all as leaders, but only 17% really had a clear sense of what made them special. By the way, that's also an employer, which is a different discussion today, but it does apply to your organization. Do you have a clear sense of your employer brand and what makes you, why people are drawn to you, and what about you is specific, is very, very clear. So, you think about Bridgehead versus Starbucks in Ottawa. You think about the differences in culture and identity. It's very, very clear to us. So identity is a really, really key thing. And so I call this the taxi principle. I put up your hands, those of you that have seen that English taxi wandering around Ottawa. Those of you that have seen that, yeah, a number of you have, right? And how does this relate to this? Because I think there's a sense of that he or she who's driving that taxi, there's a sense of unique identity and a comfort in that identity, and an ability to draw opportunity and differentiate themselves in the marketplace. So I think that's the other interesting thing about a leader is when you have a sensibility of your unique identity, your unique skill set, you can package that, and it both is valuable within the organization in differentiating yourself from other people, but it's also, quite frankly, long-term, as you think about career growth and opportunity, you're differentiating yourself in the market. So you're not just a finance manager or a director of HR or a VP of operations. You have a unique skill set that is what you do. So in a sense, what Don Cherry and Ron McLean have done. So when you think about Don Cherry and Ron McLean, just put an answer. When you think of Don Cherry, what would you say that his unique style would be? So just kind of give me, you can throw your answers in the box there. When you think of Don Cherry is what? Excuse me, ... When you think of Don Cherry, what's Don Cherry's identity when you think of that? And certainly he's aggressive, he's obtrusive, right? Right? He is expressive, he's risk-taking. What about Ron McLean? What's Ron McLean's style? And Ron McLean is the facilitator, right? The person that is providing sort of this kind of counterbalance to Don Cherry. And so how does this relate to our discussion today? Because that's a good example of two completely different kinds of personalities and styles. And the consistency. So you've never seen Don Cherry act like Ron McLean or Ron McLean act like Don Cherry unless they're spoofing each other, right? And that is rare. Even how they dress. Look how Don Cherry dresses and how Ron McLean dresses. So very, very consistent with their identity, with their abilities, with their strengths. And the interesting thing about is Don Cherry does not want everyone to like him. That's not what he's about. He's about being himself and finding a market or an audience that wants to listen to him or is attracted to that. Same thing with Ron McLean. Not everyone's going to be a Ron McLean fan, although Ron McLean's style is a good example. This has a broader access point. So more and more people are accepting of his style. The power there, though, is that both Ron McLean and Don Cherry have a clear sense of their identity and then behave out of that strength and have consistency in that. And that really is why we're drawn to brands like Bridgehead and Tim Hortons and Don Cherry and Ron McLean and Hockey Night in Canada, because one of the great things we're looking for when you look at all the change of context in the world we all live in, where every day we wake up and it's unpredictable, is if you can be predictable in your behavior and predictable in your performance, that goes a long way in today's world around this. So what are the 8 types of leadership styles? So what are the styles that you could be? And so what I'd like you to do is, just as you maybe make a note here of the different styles, and I'd be curious to see what style you think you are. Maybe we'll circle that a bit later. But and there's different values to different styles, right? And there's a different place to different styles, and there's no one style that's better than the other. There is the style, and I think that's the other sort of myth around this is that, extroverts versus introverts, or drivers versus all these different things that we have that we sort of see more value. Some have different places in our world of work, but they're all valuable in their own way. So one of the myths about this is that you have to be like somebody else, and I think this is what I think is that it's both practically and philosophically important to know your style and be that style and nurture that style and drive that style. So leadership styles, what are they? So there's a strategist, so they see leadership as a game of chess. So you're good at providing vision, strategic direction, and outside-the-box thinking. The other thing I would say is we often think about outside-the-box thinking, but I also think of inside-the-box thinking as well. So I also think strategy as it relates to inside the box, inside the organization, dealing with some of the challenges. So strategists, they're the type that provides vision, strategic direction, and innovative thinking. Number two, the change catalyst. So they view leadership as a turnaround activity. So they love messy situations. They're very skilled at re-engineering and creating new organizational blueprints. There's a whole format of CEOs. There's a group of CEOs that are brought in specifically for turnarounds, or you have leaders that are brought in specifically to turn around that organization or to turn around that business unit. And they're the ones that love messy situations. So are you the type that loves a messy situation? Or who on your team loves a messy situation? Because here's the reality in the world of business, we're going to have messy situations. But who has that style that's strong in that area? Well, the third style, the transactor. So this is somebody that is great at identifying and tracking new opportunities and thriving on negotiations. So often you'll see this, by the way, in the world of HR, where some of you may or may not be a part of, right? So yeah, are you guys seeing the slides? Somebody's mentioning. Are you guys seeing the slides?
Now I am.
Okay, shoot, we had a technical glitch there. Okay, so the transaction. So they see slides as deal making. So you're great at negotiating, identifying, and tracking and thriving on new opportunities. So that's, and I apologize, we had a technical glitch there. I don't think our slides were progressing, so sorry about that. Yeah, so seeing that, so maybe I'll just go back quickly to kind of show you that slide of the Don Cherry and the London cab, so you can see that, right? So Don Cherry and Ron McLean, so that 8 style. So strategist, the change catalyst, and now the transactor, seeing leadership as deal making. So you're great at negotiating. So again, people that are typically in purchasing, in HR, in areas where you're business development, right? So that can be an area that as a leadership style. The next style, the builder. So the builder views leadership as an entrepreneurial activity. So these are really good at coming in and starting something. So you have the person that's really good at sort of saying, we're going to go build this, go start this new division, go start this new area. What does this look like? How do you move forward on that? And that is important to view leadership as this entrepreneurial activity. So again, the other interesting thing about entrepreneur versus intrapreneurial, and that's a different discussion than today, but the idea of using your entrepreneurial vision inside of an organization. The innovator. So the innovator sees leadership as creative generation. So you're focused on new and possess great capacity to solve extremely difficult problems. So if you think about an example of the BlackBerry or the iPhone or the iPad or things like that, you have innovative leaders that are there to create and generate leadership in that capacity. The processor. So this views leadership as an exercise in efficiency. So you like organizations to be well-oiled machines, and you're very effective at setting up structure. So that's a processor. Somebody who looks at operations. It says, how do we make things more effective? How do we drive things so that they're more efficient? And how do we set up structure? And they're the type of person that's always looking at how to fine-tune. Have we considered this or have we considered that? they're often more black and white, but not always, but they often are more black and white in the sense of the way that they deal with issues. The coach. So they see leadership as a way to develop people. You know how to get the best out of people, thus creating high-performance cultures. So this is somebody that is oriented towards, people development, towards nurturing, towards helping, towards training, these types of areas. So again, you might have somebody on your team that's a real strong advocate for change around that and change and helping people to develop. And that's another reality of the type of leadership styles. The communicator. So they see leadership as stage management. You're strong influencers and have considerable impact on your surroundings. So that'll be the person around the table or in your organization that's often, involved with promoting ideas, or the promoter, or the person that's, driving issues, or encouraging you to join different things, or the person that's out, or the person that's a good presenter. It's interesting, just as an aside, one of the things that I think is key in general is a leader is developing and nurturing a communication style, and being a more effective communicator. That's really fundamentally a leadership key. And recently I actually took a program at the Ottawa Little Theatre, Ottawa School. It's in the Glebe, the theater in the Glebe. There's a theater there. I can get it to you if you're interested. But they do improv training, and I found that very effective. Not that I don't know how to communicate, but I think we can all learn how to communicate more effectively and adapt. So looking at different styles, and as you can see, they're all different. So there's the strategist. How many of you put up your hands would say that you would call yourself a strategist by nature? That would be your style, your primary style. Now remember, you'll have a primary style, but then you will have secondary styles, right? So you'll have one that's sort of, because obviously we have a mix of these things, don't we? We're not only one style. We're a mix of these elements. And so we have a primary driver, and then we have a secondary or third or fourth kind of driver. So the strategists, they're the strategists, okay. How many of you would see yourself as a catalyst, a change catalyst? Put up your hands, those of you see yourself as somebody that is good at sort of coming in and transforming and turning around scenarios, okay. What about the transactor? How many of you really enjoy the deal-making part of leadership and putting together concepts and ideas from a deal-making perspective? What about the builder, the person that you view leadership as an entrepreneurial activity? How many of you would say that that's something that you really enjoy, building things and nurturing things and changing things? Okay. Again, primary style. Innovator. Those of you that would see yourself as an innovator, see leadership as a creative idea generator. You're focused on new problems. How many of you would say that? That's a primary one. Okay. And the processor, that you view leadership as an exercise in efficiency. How many of you are inclined towards that you by nature love efficiency and love to kind of look at ways to make things more efficient? The coach. Put up your hands, those of you who see yourself as a coaching style, that you see you're by nature somebody that's nurtured, towards people development, to age, those types of things. Okay, great. And then the last one, the communicator. How many of you would put up your hands to see yourself as a communication type style? So what's interesting is I noticed in our stats, just as people responded to that, we were kind of all equal across the board across those areas. Now remember, you have a dominating style. So the thing that I would encourage you to think about is that that you want to build on that. So we don't want Don Cherry to get more refined. We don't want Ron McLean to get more brash. We would like them to build on those things. So you have a style. How do you build on that? And how do you nurture that? And how do you direct that? And how do you develop that? So that you get stronger at that style. And I call it the 80-20 rule. Often it's troublesome in the work, the industry I'm a part of, that often our industry is focused on weaknesses or can be, right? And I call it the 80-20 principle. That if you're going to nurture and develop your team, then one, help them understand their strengths, and then two, nurture that. Be aware of weaknesses and be aware of those types of things, but really, really nurture your strengths and nurture their strengths, because that's where you're going to get your biggest return on energy, time, training, all those sorts of things. You're not going to get it by you're not going to get it by working on weaknesses. I remember that. I remember one of our clients came in and he had some coaching. I said, "What is this?" Well, he said, "My coach circled all these weaknesses, and this is what I'm so focused on." And I said, "Well, no disrespect to some of the work you've done in the past, but I think what we really need to focus on is your strengths and be aware of those weaknesses and manage those weaknesses, but our energy needs to be focused on that." So I think this is, to me, the key. So if you look at kind of some more research around this area, so dealing with all the changes in the world of work, understanding your style. So how might the roles and activities that managers need to shift to meet these? And what's interesting, the key findings in the research around leadership is that, this is a Canadian study, by the way, is that 71% of senior leaders will require either new perspectives or new areas of expertise or transformation in thinking. And the same thing around 72% of frontline managers. So to me, this idea of transformation in thinking is really what we're talking about, is having a clear sense of your strengths. So we often talk about people are our greatest asset, people are our greatest asset. But are we spending enough energy and investment in helping our team truly nurture and develop their strengths and build on that strengths and supporting them in that? It's also interesting what manager and leader competencies and behaviors are viewed as having the most influence on individual and organizational performance. And again, no surprise here that communication is the most important thing, followed by execution, decision-making, coaching, and these types of things. So when you understand your style, then I think you can find a communication style for that. You be consistent in that, and it helps you with execution, decision-making, all those sorts of things, because you're not you're being consistent in that way. Another reality too is that that we do need to grow across all of these areas, and that's really fundamental. So here's the other reality. And when asked what type of learning experience would lead to greater impact on senior leadership performance, and again, it relates to this that we're talking about. 83% said either reshaping patterns of thinking or embracing the unknown in order to integrate new net realities. So embracing the unknown, but also understanding what is our pattern of thinking around our team, my strengths, my weaknesses, things like that. So how do you manage forward leading, or what can make you really good employee? I think ultimately starting with what you know, that most of us have an innate sense of where we're at, and you got to start somewhere, and I'd start there. And I think the neat thing about you as a leader, understanding your own strengths, your own style, is then you can help others understand theirs. So I think a good manager, a good leader is good at pointing out to somebody, do you recognize that you're really good at a strategy? And they may not see that. I've had so many examples where great leaders have pointed out something. How many of you, put up your hands, have been profoundly impacted in your sense of your own strengths or your own identity by your leader or people around you? So those of you that have sort of been profoundly impacted by somebody who pointed out something that you didn't see. And that's a neat thing about the nurturing people development side, is nurturing that and developing that. The other reality of this is that, I think when you have a sensibility of the things we're talking about, then you can think bigger and think smaller. So you can think globally and drink locally. So I think when you understand your strengths and you understand your place, then you can have a bigger perspective where you fit in your organization. It can also help you in your specific requirements. How many of you were a scout or a cub or a brownie growing up? Put up your hands, those of you that are scout or cub. And what was the one lesson that stuck with you that stands out? What's one lesson that sort of sticks with you when you think about being a cub, brown, or scouty, or scout rather, or scouty? Anything that stands out? Well, for me, it was being prepared, and ways of experiencing things and trying new things, right? So to me, one of the neat thing about this is that you may see yourself as a certain type of leader, but then you try something, and you try a new event or try a new project, and all of a sudden you discover a set of skills you didn't necessarily know you had, and that's kind of neat. I think the other reality is, I love this. This is being comfortable in our own situation. Sometimes we have limitations and scenarios that impact us, and it changes our role, and it changes the way we have a certain style, we're in a certain function, and we have to adapt to that. And I think that's the reality too, that we always can't be perfectly aligned with our style, and so adaptation is really, really key. The other thing I would say about this is, being connected, and this is another pattern of what we're talking about in leadership in general is being connected is so key, because you can learn from others, you can support others, you can identify opportunity and what this looks like. The other thing I would say to you, remember, I love this, so your job is not to change people's leads, yes, but changes their decisions. So again, the more true you are to yourself, the more you're modeling the things we're talking about, the better it's going to be at leading and managing others. Because ultimately, people follow how you behave, not what you say, right? The other reality, too, and I think this is, to me, your other responsibility as a leader, is the real task of leadership is to confront your team with their freedom, with who they are, and the responsibility comes with that. It's not your job to tell people what to do, but to confront people with what they do. And the other piece I would say is get commitment. When you have commitment from people about what they're going to do and their style and integrating the types of things that they're involved with, you're going to find a lot greater response. So to me, the key sort of hopefully fresh takeaway from you, and maybe you can share that in the question box or something that you felt is a takeaway from today. But to me, the big thing is to know who you are. It's a really, really, really old idea, to know thyself and to be true to thyself. And it's just a simple thing, and it's just framing it properly. And so this is, to me, what's neat about this process is when you start to understand how to frame it or how to have language around it, then internally, then you can start to be more effective at managing and leading and identifying opportunity that's the right fit. Because a lot of times what I'll find, my experience is not that the person's the wrong person, but often we're expecting something they're not, or we're putting them in a situation where there's a different style required. Here's the other reality, too, is that style is one thing, but at the end of the day, we all expect substance, don't we? We all expect something of substantive scenario. So while the style is, we could have a promoter, but if they don't know what they're talking about, then they're not going to be very influential, or an innovator, but doesn't have a sensibility of the depth. So I think the other reality of this is the style is one thing, but I think it's really, success comes with having both. And so this is to decide that any fool knows what to work at hard something you want to accomplish is the only way to be happy. And so to me, when you look at employee engagement, you look at attracting good people, having good leaders, again, it's a very simple idea. Know thyself, be true to thyself, and you as leaders or as organizations is try to find the place that is the right place for that person. And if you can't, then having an honest conversation around that. We do that a lot. We do both leadership development and restructuring work, because there are times when it's just not the right fit and you don't have the right opportunity for that person, and you're actually doing that person a favor if you are allowing for change there. So good. So I will open this up or I guess Susan, you can open this up for questions, and I'm happy to. And there's different ways of asking questions, by the way, around this topic. One is you'll see that the question box there. You can ask the questions down there, and I'm going to try to mute everyone. Shoot, you know what? I just did that. I'm going to unmute you all. So anyone who wants to ask verbal.
That's great. So Alan, you said there's two ways to ask questions. We can verbally now, or unmuted, so we could just speak up and take any questions, or you can write them in the text box, question box here on the right-hand side.
Yeah, so I'm just unmuting you.
Okay. Well, hello everyone. We're live. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, we've got first question to break the ice. Hear a bit of an echo there. One question that I had, Alan, there are some I'm going to say just an employee, and that's not the best expression or the best term, but if you're somebody working within an organization and you're not necessarily a manager, can you still be a leader?
Yeah, I think that, one of our sort of principles is that leadership happens at all levels, and I think good, again, employers of choice, or if we look at sort of, when you look at those results of employer surveys,
the survey,
that people really, what they really want is they want to have a voice. and they want to make an impact, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and they want to be able to have some element of voice, some element of I did something today and I made a difference today and I was heard and I was able to do something. There's a really good book. Those who are interested in this whole concept we're talking about, obviously, while you're here, it's called Why Work Sucks and How to Fix It. Why Work Sucks and How to Fix It. And often it's a really simple idea. When they gave people more choice over and more control and more voice, so control and voice, that workplace engagement went through the roof, and where people didn't feel heard or where they didn't feel like they had control or influence, it went there. So to me, the more empowered you can make people at different levels in leading, the better you're going to be at this. And it's funny, we're dealing with an employer in Vancouver, and they're restructuring their entire organization. So it's actually a wind up because of a government contract that's winding up, and so it's impacting this group. But one of the things we noticed was that the CEO was excellent at creating space for everyone around the table at the leadership team. So there's 10 people at the leadership meeting we did with them. And we just noticed how he kind of sat back and you could see, and this group had worked together for a while, so it wasn't like this was a new CEO and this was a new relationship, people trying to befriend each other. It's like these guys have worked together for a number of years, and you could just see how he'd given them space. So that's at the leadership level. But I do think it sort of trickles down, right? So if he's doing that, then he's encouraging them to model that. And yeah, leadership happens at all levels. I mean, Lee Valley Tools is a classic good example of that here in Ottawa and across the country, where their customer services manual says, do what you do for a friend. That's what so their customer service people are given a lot of decision-making and control and autonomy. I just had that yesterday. I was just talking to WestJet about something, and I wanted to shift the flight around. And again, that person, they didn't have to go up 3 layers to deal with that, right? The person could deal with it who I talked to. So.
That's a great example. Are there any questions?
No, you know what? I muted everyone because we're getting feedback on the line, so I apologize.
Okay, well, maybe just in the box. This has been great, Alan, and I could listen to you all day. I've heard you speak on a number of occasions, and your content is great. And as a leader myself, I'm always writing feverishly, making notes, and learn a lot. So even in this 25 minutes, you were extremely helpful to me, and I hope to others on the call as well. So thank you so much for being part of the ECA, the Employees' Choice Award program, and for participating in this webinar. So we'll send everyone after this call an email, and you'll be able to listen to this call again and be able to contact you, Alan, if they have any other questions regarding the content you shared today.
Yeah, and the other thing I would say is that thinking about this whole topic in your team is one of the things you can do is you can do really good assessment. And I know that sounds a bit self-promoting, and I guess in a way it is, but one of the things that we have seen is a lot of times the assessment models that a lot of people are using are fairly rudimentary. So they're using sort of a Myers-Briggs or this type scenario, and there is a whole next generation, what we call new generation of assessment tools that are out there that are actually quite sophisticated and can help with that, and they're fairly easy to use. So again, you don't have to do it with us, and you don't necessarily have to do these things, but one of the other things I think is bring people data, because it's one thing to think. And it's interesting, we were dealing with this with one of our clients, and when they went through the assessment tools, one of the things that she said, I thought I was good in this area. Now I know I'm good in this area. So to me, the shift from I think I'm good at this to now I know. However you can help with that, and maybe that is an assessment tools or whatever it might be, or an organization like ours or whatever. But the point is, if you can move people from I think to I know, then you truly empower them, right? Because then they have this confidence and clarity that comes with the I know, right? I know myself. I know I can do this. They're better at making decisions around projects that they take on or say yes to or say no to, and they'll have a better sense of that. So that would be the other thing I find in sort of the myth around sort of assessment or identity or strengths is often they're fairly rudimentary, and I'm an extrovert, therefore you should be with people. I'm an introvert, therefore I should write for a living, or whatever, kind of the classics, or I'm a green, or I'm a yellow. And the other thing I would say about this is that we're all very complex, and the world we live in is very complex. So at the end of the day, this is just a tool to deal with that complexity.
That's great. Thank you so much, Alan, again, for joining us here today. You know, we have a great lineup for the next 3 Wednesdays, so we hope that you'll enjoy lunch at your desk with us. Next week, we'll be featuring top 5 reasons companies complete employee engagement surveys and the benefits. And the following Wednesday, we'll be talking about the workplace in the social media. That's on the 15th of October. And then our final webinar on October 22nd over the lunch hour is about top benefit trends for 2014. So we hope you'll join us. You can go to employeeschoice.ca and click on free webinars and get more details about registering and what we'll be sharing each Wednesday. Now, if you're interested in learning more about the ECAs, the Employees Choice Awards program, we encourage you to visit employeeschoice.ca. And if you want to get your company involved, remember it only takes 2 minutes to register and 10 minutes to complete. And here's what we know for sure about the companies and organizations that get involved in engagement surveys, particularly this one here with Talent Map, is organizations with engaged employees get better results, they're more productive, they have less turnover, and they're more innovative. And engaged employees within those organizations are happier, healthier, and they're stronger contributors to family and community. So before we leave you today, allow me to say a quick thank you to our dedicated partners with the Employees Choice Awards, our partner Talent Map, Nelligan O'Brien Payne, our lead sponsor, Meldrum Horn and Associates, Career Joy, and the Human Resource Professional Association of Ottawa. I want to thank everyone for being here today. I hope that you enjoyed the webinar, and we will send around an email and a link to the audio recording of today's session. Have a wonderful day, and we hope to see you next week. Bye for now.